Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to CE 155 Facility Layout and Design. Chef Eric and I welcome you to another fine live session. Hey, couple of things we're going to talk about tonight. Excellent work on this week's assignment. I was really impressed with the discussion forum. We didn't talk about this last week, but the value of the relationships that you are developing now are going to last you for the remainder of your culinary career. They're extremely valuable. Camaraderie, networking is a vital tool to lead to your success in this industry. So that's what we do in this business. I was impressed with what everybody was talking about in the discussion forum, and you guys were thorough, you guys were efficient, and you guys posted some great inspirations in there. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I thought that was awesome. Before we get rolling, I know Chef Janet is
special guest of the evening.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
What have we done, Chef Eric, to receive this?
I think it's just our awesomeness that Chef Janet wanted to swing by and check out our awesomeness and kind of give a good little what's going on crew kind of thing, you know?
Yes.
Well, you know, I one of the things I always appreciated when I went to ground school was when the big people would walk around and go, hey, I like how you're fabbing that chicken. And so I thought I'd bring a little bit that to the online program, because you know what? You guys are so awesome. Patricia, Martell, Tammy, Roberta, Kimberly, you guys are just rocking it. And you have two of the best chefs to get you through the next this section. Week 2, I mean, look where you are. You guys are well over halfway through the program. You guys know that, right? That you guys are like 6 months away or less graduating.
Wow.
Excited?
Yeah, Chef, I think it's like really like 3 months. You got like 3, 6.
Are you guys at the last 6 weeks of 141? You're baking and pastry? Or the first 6 weeks? First 6 weeks?
I don't know.
Like the first 6 weeks.
Okay, the first 6 weeks. So you are, when you hit December, right, and you go on your break, you will actually be halfway through the program, because then you'll have 6, is that right? 6 weeks, 12 weeks, that's 18, plus 6 weeks, 24. You are 24 weeks away from graduating.
Well, we better get out the antibiotics for the short timers disease, because
yeah, I know, right?
We want that coming down the pipe.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate you guys letting me drop by. I just wanted to say, I know you guys are in good hands, and I'm just so happy you guys are here. And remember what your goal is: to eat lots of turkey on Thanksgiving. So chefs are going to talk to you about what's going on special there. But if you guys ever need me for anything, in the chat box, my where to call me, where to text me. But otherwise, you guys have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving, and enjoy your time with two of the best chefs in the program.
We appreciate your support. We appreciate the visit. So have a wonderful evening and take care.
I'm blessed. 2 visits in 1 day. This is awesomeness.
Yeah, what's up? Let's write this down. This is awesome, man.
Stop.
November 15th. Right?
What?
November 15th. We're going to remember this day for a long time.
Oh, there you go. We'll set an anniversary.
1 day after my 3-year anniversary with my wife. So we're going to go celebrate tomorrow. So.
Ooh, nice.
Veterans Day on Monday, Chef Janet Day on Thursday. So this is going to be a great thing.
Wonderful. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Chef.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gents, going back to the discussion board, Chef Eric and I were kind of sending some stuff back and forth, and we picked out a couple of ones that we thought were just fantastic. I wanted to share those with everybody, just to kind of point out the detail that was put into these assignments. And the first one was done by Kimberly Stahl. And going through this, Chef Eric, what impressed you about this?
Well, what impressed me about this was she really narrowed it down to the components, right? Rather than just like the ingredients, it was more pertaining to the components, right? Because some certain things you can definitely make you know, so you don't have to give the whole details behind making, you know, that compo. You know, but then she was specific pertaining to the components as well, right? Not just saying she used bread, she used cinnamon brioche bread, right? She was being very specific about those components. Then when it got down into those equipments, she was really dialing in, even getting those heat lamps in there, right? You know, making sure that she had a place to keep that food warm, you know, but then she didn't leave it to just that. She also made sure she had refrigeration to start from, right? Because you go from your refrigeration, then you go into your actual production of your ingredients, right? Because your refrigeration unit's usually going to have all your mise en place in there for you to go ahead and put together all those components to build. Especially in this case, I believe it's like a diner or a kind of like a bakery diner. Am I right, Kimberly?
It's like a breakfast, like bistro, like like 3 o'clock, you know, 6 to 10.
Like a good brunch place.
Yeah.
Every day. Every day's brunch.
Yeah, exactly.
I was really impressed by the thoroughness, I would say. And the reason that impressed me is because when you go to open up a facility, whether you're the owner or whether you're the chef or whether you're just helping out, attention to detail and being thorough and thinking things through is what's really critical. So great job, Kimberly, on that.
Huge.
Huge.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate
You're welcome.
I was really intimidated by this you know, doing this, and so to hear that I did well, I'm super stoked.
Kimberly, it's tough to get started. That's the thing. Like once you get started and you're like, that's why we said to do 5 of them, right? Once you get started doing 5, then you can go ahead and do that 10 to 20 different menu items you do. So that way you're going to be nicely prepared for when you actually get that business plan fully established and start breaking ground on your establishment. So that way you can start hunting out the best deals for all your pieces of equipment.
Yeah, the first hotel that I opened, I was part of the opening crew, and this station equipment list map was 267 pages long because of all the different restaurants and outlets and everything. But you know what? Thank God they did that research and they did all the attention to detail because it made our jobs a lot easier in the long run. So great job, Kimberly. Hats off to you. And then I wanted to share one more with you as well. And this one is done by April Terry, which is absolutely fantastic as well. What really impressed me with this one, once again, was the thoroughness and the attention to detail. She's got all the names of her menu items up here, but then her station list I thought was fantastic. And she listed out, she's obviously doing kind of a French style kitchen in here with her Poisson-Aire station, Gaillardian station, and the Garde Manger, and I like this terminology that she's using. Eric, Chef Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, she definitely impressed me the same with the station, right? Going back to that old style French brigade system and really dialing in every little station in there. And that's awesome because that's thorough. That's attention to detail. And that's what you want to be as a chef. You want to be really paying attention to all those little small things that you think, because maybe she might not end up having one of those stations in the long run. She might end up kind of combining it in with a different one, you know, and really kind of winging it occasionally, you know, seeing what you can kind of do, because I believe in the future of this class as well, you're going to have one of those situations that for an assignment to where, all right, what happens when you're slow? You know, when you're slow, you're going to have to think about those stations to where, do I need to have this many stations, this many people on staff at the moment? Because that many people on staff, that's a lot of labor, right? One person at least per station. So when you start getting those revenue dialed back 50%, what do you do, right? But she did an excellent job paying attention to those details. A lot of you guys paid a lot of attention to those details, right? I actually sent Chef Weeks probably like 4 or 5 different assignments from today when I just cranked out a bunch of them because we want to really emphasize our time management, those guys, okay? A lot of you, I only had 2 people, maybe 3, that actually submit by the end of the day on Monday, Okay, this is a class of, what did you say, Chef? 37?
7.
So let's make sure that we're getting those assignments in early. The earlier, the better. That's going to leave you more opportunity to go back, make any improvements necessary. Like I used to preach to you guys back in, 121, 125. Really want to emphasize that time management and scheduling out our weeks accordingly, okay?
Absolutely. That's great information, Chef Eric. And then just going back and touching on April's assignment and Kimberly's assignment real quick, that there's a term that we use in the kitchen, those of us that have been around for a while. It's called proaction before reaction. And that thoroughness, that attention to detail is a sign of proaction, because you don't want to get into a restaurant and have to react, find out you don't have the right equipment, find out that things don't work. So great job, everybody, on that assignment. So that's some fantastic work. Really appreciate that. Chef Eric, did you have anything else to share regarding last week's assignment?
Not really. You guys are definitely improving. Some of you take that opportunity that I tell you. If I mentioned a few things that you could definitely adjust and you didn't get that, final lesson, that 100% that maybe you were striving for or didn't really understand the assignment, make sure that you reach out, right? We're here for you. You will, if you get that assignment in on time and filled out to the best of your capability, you have that opportunity to make those improvements up until the following week's deadline, okay, that Tuesday. So everybody that submitted and has feedback already, go ahead, listen to that feedback, take notes if you need to make some improvements and didn't get that 100%, and go ahead and jump back in there, kind of do some little tweaking that I might have suggested for those improvements, okay?
And like Chef Eric mentioned just a moment ago, your success in this industry is going to be marked by your time management. Time management as a chef is one of the most critical tools that we effectively manage in order to become successful, right? If you are preparing a banquet for 500 people and you procrastinate and you lollygag and you do not manage your time efficiently, you are going to be in a world of hurt come the day of the banquet, which is a lesson I learned as a young guy. In hotels, when we go to do a banquet, a large banquet, that food is prepared generally a couple of days before. And the day of the banquet, we're generally standing there waiting for the guests to arrive, which is a sign of effective time management. So develop that habit now before you get into industry. Proact so you don't have to react. And it makes things very, very simplistic. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, is Turkey Day. And we need to change our live schedule because Chef Eric and I are closing down the corporate office here in Stanton. We are going to have our live session next Wednesday, November the 21st at 4 p.m. in the afternoon at Central Standard Time. 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, November the 21st. We're going to send out some reminders to you as well to help you out with that. I think Chef Eric might have some specific information to share regarding your submissions next week, since that's going to be the end of week 3. So I think we're going to be closing that out just a little earlier.
Yeah, so since we are observing Turkey Day, right? All us chef evaluators, including your instructors, staff, is going to be taking Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off. So that way we can also enjoy time with our families, friends, and, be thankful for the people and stuff we have in our life, right? So, so be mindful that if you submit early, your assignment will have feedback to it by the end of the day of Sunday when we do come back, okay? So, yeah, Tammy, no, you will still have homework. Sorry. It's not one of those kind of things to where we can just go ahead and have you draw a picture of a turkey around your hand and send it in for credit. Not going to be that sort of thing. We still have assignments. We still have work. We're just taking a couple days off in the meantime. So if you do have any questions, we will respond back to you in a timely fashion. It just probably won't be until Sunday. Okay.
Great. So, like we mentioned just a moment ago, we're going to send out a couple of reminders to all of you about our live session next Wednesday, November the 21st at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time in the afternoon. So put your seatbelts on, hang on tight. We mentioned this last week, and I want to reiterate the fact. I know this is culinary school, and I know that a lot of the mentality is learning to slice, dice, saute, bake, roast, baste, all that other kind of good stuff. The tools that you are learning in this class are the tools that will lead to your success in climbing the ladder. You have a choice in your career. You can remain as a line cook if you choose, which is perfectly fine, or you can kind of climb the ladder. Maybe you want to be the one that owns the facility. Maybe you want to be the one that manages it. Maybe you want to be the one that wants to become the director of food and beverage. The tools that you learn in this class are the tools that enable you to climb the ladder. So really focus and get as much out of this class as you possibly can because it's extremely critical. So before we move into week 2 here in CE 155, we need to make sure that we hold on to that facility tool that we opened up and started with last week. We're not going to be using that in this week's assignment. So you need to make sure that you keep it near and dear because in week 3, when next week, we're going to be using it once again. Well, let's take a quick look at our assignment or our class page for next week. Week 2. Is everybody watching this little video? It gets sent through the Moodle message, and then it also is posted on the class page each week. I know it's not the most exciting little video. It's produced by yours truly, but it does include a lot of valuable information that'll help you get through the week and some tidbits, et cetera, et cetera.
Watch out, folks. Here comes Hollywood Warren Weeks.
I'm down, man. Here I come.
Hollywood.
Here I come. Yeah. And so research materials this week is deciding a location. Critical that you focus on learning and understanding the research materials in order to successfully complete this week's assignment. So don't take it lightly. And then live session. Thank you everybody that's in attendance tonight. If you're not, and you won't know this, but make sure that you do watch the live session archive. Chef Eric will back me up on this one. The ones that attend and participate in the live sessions are the ones that succeed in the program. And that is what we want for all of you. So make sure that you tune in and you pay attention.
This live session isn't live without you guys, okay? That's the thing. We want you guys to bring those questions. Communicate with us, ask those questions, give us your kind of input, how you're viewing things. Let's make this interactive rather than just Chef Weeks or myself sitting here blowing a bunch of hot air at you, right? Our offices are already hot as is. I mean, he's in Arizona, I'm in Colorado. So, I mean, it gets kind of toasty. It's not quite winter yet where we live.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And then down at the bottom of our class page is our assignment this week. So it's a light week here in CE 155. So we expect top performance from everybody based on that. But deciding on a location is a critical decision when it comes to opening up a restaurant. We talked last week and we mentioned that the average cost of opening up just a small restaurant in the United States is right around $250,000. And that's a huge investment. For a lot of people, if you're going to be doing a small restaurant, that's somebody's life savings, that's somebody's 401k plan, that's a note to a bank that you're going to be responsible for in the long run. So the successful choice of a location is extremely critical. It's not something you can go out and throw straws at. We don't drive down the street and throw darts and hope to hit a building and decide that's where we're going to open. It doesn't roll that way, right? So we have to think things through critically. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We're going to talk a little bit also about rents and what does that mean and what percentages of your gross income you should be paying towards rent. That'll help everybody make some more clear decisions down the road, we hope. Before you choose a location, though, you got to do a couple of things, right? It's a very unsuccessful formula. People that go out, choose a location, then write a menu, then decide on their concept. It doesn't work that way. The first thing that we need to do before we can choose a location, you have to decide your style of food and beverage. It's critical, right? I want you to decide, hey, am I going to be a steakhouse? Am I going to be a cafe? Am I going to be a bistro? Am I going to be a restaurant, a brasserie? What am I going to be? And then now that you have your food and beverage put together, you need to decide your style of service, which is extremely critical. Is it going to be counter service? Is it going to be sit-down service, French service, Russian service? What type of service are you going to have, which will lead to the next question. And the big question there is demographics. Right? Demographics are a huge consideration when it comes to choosing what and where you want to put your restaurant. Demographics, basically, to define that, is the socioeconomic categories within a group of people. How much money do they make? Where do they live? Are they married? Are they unmarried? Are they educated, uneducated? What's their disposable income? What are their eating habits? Right? So, for example, if I wanted to open up a restaurant and I had a fine dining steakhouse like a Morton's or a Fleming's, something of that nature, I would not research the demographics and open my restaurant in an area that has young families with small children. Right? Does that make sense? It's just, it ain't gonna fly, man. Those people, number one, they don't have the money to eat out. And number two, small children don't do well in fine dining restaurants. For those of you that don't know, I have some and they don't. Right? So, and then, the same thing goes in reverse as well. You know, if you're opening up a small cafe, right, and you do the research on the demographics and you find out the majority of the people are white-collar professionals with PhDs, lawyers, doctors, and everything else, they're not going to have their executive meetings at a breakfast house that charges $2.99. It just doesn't work that way. So demographics are critical. You need to understand who your target market is, who your customer is, before you can decide on a location, right? So a lot of these corporations that are out there, these larger corporations, these chain restaurants such as Olive Garden, Chili's, Chipotle, and some of these other places, they don't just run out and choose a street corner and watch the cars drive by and say, hey, this is good, right? They hire corporations that go out and they do what's called a site survey. Site surveys run anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 per survey, and that includes the entire demographics, traffic counts, and everything else. These people are putting $1 to $1.5 million into their facilities, right? They're going to make sure that facility is going to succeed at that location. So spending $25,000 to $50,000 for them is reasonable. However, most of us can't do that. So what do? Right? We're not going to sit and, Chef Eric and I aren't going to sit there and start flipping quarters and say heads or tails, So we need to get on the phone. We need to talk to our Chamber of Commerce. We need to talk to the U.S. Census Bureau. And all these other things to get as much information about our demographics as we possibly can. Some of the various locations that we deal with in the restaurant industry, we have street locations that we rely on vehicular traffic to take a look at our facility. We rely on other locations that we rely on foot traffic to take a look at our facility. And then we also deal with what we call captive audience facilities. Captive audience facilities are places like stadiums, airports, shopping malls, food courts, those types of places. And they're all a little bit different, and they're all very special. Now, before we get too much further, there are certain concepts that you need to be conscientious of that don't warrant spending a lot of money on locations, right? Domino's Pizza, for example, right? They do the majority of their business out the back door. So does it make sense for them to rent a prime retail location? No, not at all. So they generally go into the back of a strip center to a discrete location where some signage is available and some signage isn't. There's commissaries that produce food for catering functions for other restaurants. Do they need to pay the top dollar for prime retail space? No, they don't. So they find very discrete locations to work out of as well. So you need to take that into consideration when you are choosing your concept, which is very, very important. And a lot of times restaurants out there will utilize their location expense as a form of marketing, right? Because if you're going to pay a huge dollar amount to go on a street corner that has 20,000 cars that pass by every day, you're literally marketing your facility to all those passerbys. So a good portion of that cost gets applied to their marketing budget, which gets written off. So moving on to our next topic here. There's a couple of things that you need to take into consideration. You've taken the time to develop your concept with your food, your beverage, your style of service. You've researched your demographics, right? There's a couple of things that create a successful restaurant when it comes to location, right? One is visibility, right? If you're relying on foot traffic or vehicular traffic, you must be visible in some form, right? Extremely critical. Parking is a requirement here in the United States for a restaurant. You'll find that you will really ostracize. Everybody understands the term ostracize, correct? Ostracize is when you push somebody out or you don't allow them in. If you do not have parking at your facility, you'll generally ostracize a good portion of your target market because they're not willing to walk extended distances, and they're also not willing to drive around and look for parking and pay additional prices for parking. So parking is a critical issue. Something else that we really, really need to focus on, and we're going to get into here in just a moment, is size, right? And Chef Eric and I mentioned this last week. Every inch in a restaurant costs money, right? Every inch must be utilized on a regular basis, and you pay rent on every inch in a restaurant. So the size, we don't want to get too much or we don't want to get enough. So we need to be extremely critical. How many people are interested in the food truck concept? Yeah, cool concept. It's kind of a trend right now. You see a lot of them popping up, and you also see a lot of them popping down right now. And it's a trend. I've seen a lot of trends over the last 37 years in the industry. Some make it, some don't. Food trucks are really difficult to sustain themselves based on the amount of volume that they can generate. Food trucks have a limited check average that they can charge based on the style of service, right? So generally they're not going to be in the $20 to $30 per person check average. They're going to be right around $7, $10, $12. And you can only get so many people through that food truck. So those are some of the factors that you really want to take into consideration. Let's take a look here before we talk too much more about what's going to lead you to success. Let's take a look at what's not going to lead you to success, which is some valuable information right here. You know, you always look back in history to find out what went wrong so you don't make the same mistake again. And the intention of this is not to scare anybody or get anybody out of the restaurant industry. It's to give you a realistic perspective of the restaurant industry. It's a tough business. It's hard work. Chef Eric knows this, right? We work hard, but it's a lot of passion. It's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of reward as well. So there is, unfortunately, a very high failure rate of restaurants within the restaurant industry. About 60% of new restaurants fail within the first year, and then nearly 80% of all restaurants will shutter their doors by their 5th anniversary, right? Those are not good odds, are they? Yeah. So you need to be very, very conscientious of that. Oftentimes, the number one reason for their failure is location, 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 because they did not do the appropriate research to get themselves into that location. So this slide up here talks a little bit about self-awareness. Self-awareness we just discussed in the form of food and beverage planning, service planning, conceptual planning. You need to work out your details. So the failure rate's not that good, I would say. What do you think about that?
That's why it's really good to get that networking started now. Right? Yeah. Because then you can start asking those questions of those people that are successful, because I bet you about 9 out of 10 of those people that are successful now weren't successful come that 3rd to 5th year kind of circumstance, right? They weren't doing that well. They're like, okay, well, what do I got to do? And then they kind of turned it around, switched up some things from their original planning. You know, if that meant downsizing, they downsized, right? If that meant, selling their location and moving to a different one, so that way they can better logically and statistically afford that location, then they did so, right? So it's not always about opening up your first establishment in the downtown area of the biggest city of your state, okay? Because that is not always going to lead to profits, right? Because think about it. How many other competitors do you have when it comes down to downtown dining, right? I can go park my car at the parking garage and I have at least 50 other options besides the one that I picked.
To eat at. Yep. Be conscientious of your competition around there. It's an extremely critical thing to take a look at. And then going back to the food trucks real quick, and I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but United States average is a 60% failure rate within the first 3 years. That doesn't mean that you're going to fail. That means that you need to be very conscientious, have a very effective plan that's going to lead to your success. So be conscientious of that before you begin your journey, and then take advantage of some of this information that we're sharing. Chef Eric just mentioned networking. It's an extremely valuable tool. It's part of developing your demographics as well. When we network, we talk to local vendors, we talk to local residents, we find out, we get our pulse on the neighborhood before we decide to move in there. Because there's a lot of stuff that the Chamber of Commerce isn't going to share with you, but neighbors will. And like Chef Eric just mentioned, park in a garage and there's 50 other options. You know, don't set yourself up for failure. Right? It's a very logical thing. A lot of people, and I've done this myself, and it hurt me on my second restaurant that I opened several years ago. I decided that we would open up in a closed down restaurant. And what we refer to those as are called cursed locations. And a lot of times businesses will open up with full-hearted intentions of success, and they close their doors within several years. And guess what? Somebody comes in and they buy all the FF&E. FF&E is what we call furniture, fixture, and equipment. Lease out the space, and guess what? You're right down the tubes again. So be very conscientious if you decide to go into a restaurant that did not succeed. Generally, there are reasons why they did not succeed, and why take your chance on somebody else's failure. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. We talked a little bit about getting to know your neighbors. The demographics is critical to your location, right? If you are a type of concept that requires traffic 7 days a week in order to keep your doors open and succeed, do not open next to a sports venue that only has traffic once a week, right? It's not good common sense. So when you submit your assignments this week, and Chef Eric's taking a look at your demographics and he's taking a look at your surrounding area, and you open up downtown in the business district, but you rely on Sunday brunch to succeed, he might question that, right? So that doesn't work out so well. So you have to be very, very conscientious about that. See our next slide here. Sorry, my brain gets a little fried by the second class. Yeah. All right, so moving on to our next subject here. We're going to talk a little bit about leasing out restaurant space. It's a big, big commitment. Once you sign your name on that dotted line, that baby is yours for the length of the lease. Traditionally, leases come in lengths of 5 and 10 years. So that is a big commitment for something that you don't know is going to make it or not make it. So be conscientious of that. And then your lease, you've developed your food and your beverage, your style, your concept. And hopefully by now you've done some projections on your numbers, right? Your lease payment cannot be any more than 10% of your monthly gross revenue. So for example, if you're saying, hey, I'm only going to do $30,000 a month in sales, in gross sales, your lease cannot be any more than $3,000. Otherwise, your numbers are not going to jive. $27,000 will not be enough left over to pay your expenses. If you're doing $300,000 a month, no more than $30,000 for your lease is extremely critical. Also, leases can be very, very tricky. And I know that firsthand. They have triple net leases where you are responsible for the entire maintenance of the facility. So if your AC unit takes a dump on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, guess who's going to pick up the tab? You are. And then in leases as well, you also need to be very conscientious of the space that you are leasing, because a lot of times leases include things like common spaces, right? And I've been involved in scenarios before where we've had a common space shared patio agreement, and the facility next to us got extremely busy on certain nights, and their overflow traffic would come onto our patio to our patrons who are trying to have a nice quiet evening, and vice versa. So those types of things need to be worked out in advance before it becomes a problem. Insurance is massive on restaurants, right? Because what do we work with in the kitchen? Right? Fire. Lots of fire, right? So you need to be conscientious. If you're moving into an older building that has been around for quite a while, and you know, you're not too sure about the plumbing and the electrical work and all that other kind of stuff, your insurance company is going to figure it out. So you will pay the price on the premium. So it's an extremely critical thing. Let's take a look here at some various locations. I want to take a look at this slide real quick regarding rents that will help open some eyes real quick since we're on the subject. Like I mentioned, you always have to understand everything that you're paying for when it comes to a restaurant. I have been involved in restaurant leases before where I was not clear up front as to the maintenance, to the monthly or annual assessments, right? Annual assessments would include things like repairs to the roof for all the businesses located at that location, repairs to the parking lot, right? So assessments are something that you really need to take a look at. And then there's a couple of terms over here. Usable square feet often varies from the actual square feet that is leased. And what that means, if you rent a 5,000 square foot location for your restaurant facility, a lot of times that usable space will be significantly less, like 4,000 square feet, but you're still paying for 5,000 square feet. You need to clarify, because a lot of that will include common areas and everything else. And then gross square feet would be the amount of the entire building, which would include things like foyers, entrances, back docks, everything else. So it's not cut and dry saying, you know, a little bit later here, we're going to get into seating charts and all that other kind of stuff a little bit later on in the class. And you're going to say, hey, I need a 3,000 square foot restaurant. You go out, you rent a 3,000 square foot restaurant, and there's only 2,100 square feet in it, right? It's like you got ripped off. So what happened? Up on the screen now, we have a couple of different locations here. And this one up here on the right-hand corner is my favorite restaurant in the world. It's called the Pacific Way Cafe. And what they did is they opened up this little cafe in an old post office, which I thought was very ingenious, and they kind of worked that into the design of the facility. But you'll notice it's on an intersection here in a small town. Lots of foot traffic, high visibility. Their demographics, they did fantastic. They found that the population of the town swelled by 4 people, or by 4 times during the summer months, and then went down to almost nothing during the winter months. So when are they closed? Right? They take the winter off, and they built their concept around the demographics, which worked out extremely well. So museums are very popular, museum department stores. are very popular for restaurant locations. I've seen a lot of restaurants and gas stations recently, which is kind of a trend. So just because the building had a prior occupant and a prior history doesn't mean that it's unusable. It can be something very innovative, and creativity often leads to success. Colonel Sanders, man, he started in a gas station too, didn't he, Chef Eric? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know the full-on details behind that one, but yeah, I've heard a rumor somewhere that old man, he definitely started his fried chicken utilizing the oil pan of. No, I'm just kidding, guys.
Using the leftover oil.
Oil pan from oil changing. He's
Yeah.
like, you know what? That stuff's still hot. I'm gonna throw some fried chicken in it and see if it works.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, might as well, you know. Yeah, we like to reuse, man. Why not? Recycle, reuse, save some money. Hey, and then there's a couple of other things that are really critical, and I think Chef Eric will pick up on this when you submit your assignment. We're not going to get too much into liquor laws because they vary greatly from state to state. For example, here in the state of Arizona, they generally don't issue liquor licenses any longer. You have to buy a used liquor license, and they can be extremely expensive. And there's a lot of stipulations and requirements that surround a liquor license. So if you are going to open up a restaurant with heavy-duty liquor and wine sales, Chef Eric will pick up on that, and he'll also pick up on the fact that it's next to a school, right? So be conscientious about that. Schools and churches and liquor do not go together on the surface, but I'm sure
community areas, all in general, right? We're basically governmental compounds of sorts. You can't really have a restaurant that serves booze within a certain range. There's the whole pot thing out here. You can't have a dispensary located within a specific range from any of these types of locations as well. You know, colleges, the whole 9 yards. There's a lot of different stipulations out there when it comes down to it. So definitely look into your specifications for your state, right? Finding out where you're looking into opening up your establishment. You really want to look at that state guidelines, because they're the ones that are going to either make or break that liquor law or that liquor license for you. Right? I know there's, like, in some states, I forget what it was. I want to say like Vermont or something like that. There's a waiting list, right, to where they can't even, like right now, there's people waiting to open up restaurant establishments because they only give out so many, you know, within a certain period of time. So got to do a lot of legwork on that one.
My last restaurant, we were heavy duty into wines and that kind of stuff. And it was a brand new liquor license. And in order to get that liquor license, across the street was a community facility, it was a community museum. And they did a lot of children's activities there. So the state liquor board questioned that. I had to count the amount of footsteps between my restaurant and the entrance to that facility in order to get approval on my liquor license. And that's kind of the way it rolls. So you need to be very, very conscientious about that type of thing. It's not as easy as you think it is. It's very, very achievable as long as you think it through. So make sure that you pay attention.
Huge legalities, people. Huge legality.
Yep.
So definitely, I mean, especially with alcohol. I mean, do you not blame them? You know, they got to take every precaution specifically, not only to cover your butt, but also to cover theirs.
Yeah, and the laws are bizarre. Do you realize in the state of Arizona, I could walk into any bar and sit at the bar with my 7-year-old son, and it's perfectly legal. But I can't walk into a bar with my 7-year-old son cousin and sit at the bar. It makes no sense, right? You know who's allowed behind the bar in the state of Arizona? Anybody, right? I mean, go figure, man. Hey, you want to go back there, make your own drink? Go for it. Yeah. Have a good time. That's all you. Going back, it just kind of covered, I just want to retouch on a couple of things regarding leases, which are critical parts of this. You will be at some point in time in your career involved in in some type of facility that grows, opens up another place. They expand, whatever. You're probably going to get referred to and ask your advice on a lease. Landlords will oftentimes do what we call build outs or their B&Is in their facilities, meaning that if you rent a place that is not quite up to par for you, then your landlord should go out and provide some sort of rent abatement in order for you to cover the cost of remodeling your facility. And that is something that's commonly asked for. And then they also do what we call amortizing rents. One of my restaurants, we went in and we negotiated a rising, escalating rent that was amortized over a 1-year period. So we started at $3,000 a month, and 12 months later, we peaked out at $6,000 per month. So they spread the increase of the rent over a 12-month period. Through that negotiation, it saved us a tremendous amount of money, and the landlord was more so than willing to do it to help us get going. So landlords want to see you succeed. So be open-minded when you go in there, and don't be afraid to ask. Something we forgot to talk about tonight, there is something that's becoming more and more common out there, and that's called a shared concept. You'll see quite a few of these popping up in your communities. You could probably do a little research and find some of this information. If you're doing a food truck, if you're doing a catering operation, if you're doing some type of participation in farmer markets, some type of retail packaging, this is a great way to generate a little bit of extra revenue from your facility. You have to remember at nighttime, when your restaurant closes, you're still paying rent, right? you might as well generate revenue from that space. So shared kitchens now are becoming very, very popular. I don't know how it is in Colorado, Chef Eric, but I know in the state of Arizona, if you run a food truck or a catering operation, you still have to have your license hung somewhere. And it cannot be hung in the truck or on the side of your catering vehicle. It has to be hung in a licensed facility. So this is a great way to offset some of the expense where you're sharing that facility with another restaurant that will help you out quite a bit.
It can also be in a rentable space. So like a lot of people will get like just a small little office that they call that is like their HR, you know, and they'll go ahead and employ one specific person that will then end up sitting in there and does like a lot of the filing, computer work, certain things like that, your secretary, and then go ahead and have that plaque or that license up there on the wall in that small little cubicle room. Per se, you know, it doesn't have to be a room that has, you know, a kitchen or anything like that. But when it does come down to a food truck, you are going to have to look into those types of laws even further, pertaining to those community kitchens, commissary kitchens, places that you are going to want to actually create your food, because you can't do that in your house.
That we do have a law here in the state of Arizona, and I don't know if it goes throughout all 50 states, but it's called the cottage law. And if you're producing primarily bakery products for retail sale or wholesale sale, you can produce out of your home. But other than that, it ain't gonna happen. So
proteins, no bueno. Can't have it. It's mainly the cottage law, Chef, is pertaining to specifically baked goods and baked goods only. So it varies from state to state to state. We were actually just talking about that in my last class, CE 125, and we're kind of really wanting to discuss, because a lot of people are starting to get those general ideas in that class, because we're moving into SMART goals and we're thinking about our long-term goals, right? And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to get and create and let you envision more of that creativity with thinking about the guidelines behind it, right? You know, it's not like Chef Week said when we first started this class, was a matter of, it's not all about the slicing, the dicing, you know, and the chopping and the sauteing, the braising, the basting. No, I mean, if I could do that all day and night, I would. If I didn't have to think about the other paperwork behind the game and still create revenue, oh, that'd be awesome. But you know what? That's not part of the game. That's not the restaurant industry.
We all need to remember that each and every person up on the screen, when we're in industry, our number one responsibility is to generate profit, because at the end of the day, they're really not too concerned about your food, about your human resources, about anything else. If you can't generate a profit doing what you're doing, then you are of no good to a bank or to ownership or to investors. So always be conscientious of that. I know it doesn't sound right, but it's the reality of what we deal with. I wanted to take a quick look before we wrap up here at our weekly assignment and see what we've got coming in this week. We're gonna decide where to start our food business location. Make sure you are specific, and then make sure that you use full sentences and you talk about the advantages and disadvantages of that location. You are going to share 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. Chef Eric and I shared with you earlier the steps that it takes to develop where you want to put your location, right? You have to have your food and beverage menu done, which you do from CE 185. Your style of service, is it going to be counter service? Is it going to be casual? Is it going to be fast casual? Is it going to be sit down? You need to make those decisions. You need to figure out who your demographics are going to be, right? Are you going to rely on sporting events next to Wrigley Field to fill your place? Are you going to rely on business workers in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma to fill your restaurant Monday through Friday? Make those decisions. Once those decisions are made, then you can select a location as to where it would be. The location can be within your local community, right? You can do some research on the web. There's a ton of ways to find various locations. You can go on websites that sell or advertise for businesses for sale, retail space for rent. There's a lot of widely available information. When you submit your assignment, in addition to the link from CE 185, please include a 1 to 2 sentence summary of your food business concept in online text. And Chef Eric is going to need to know exactly what your game plan is to be able to justify the location of your concept.
Every week, okay? Every week that information needs to be put down and accompany your assignment, okay? So that way it coincides with the exercise for the week in order for me to really, help progressively help you and direct you towards what might be a better place or better for that specific exercise of the week, right? So I can't remember everybody's concepts. If I did, I'd have a huge Encyclopedia Britannica of just restaurant concepts and concepts only. So definitely, put that information up there each and every week. Tammy, your pit bull is gorgeous, by the way. It makes me miss my little buddy. But keep that information in there. I saw a lot of you guys this past week forgot to put that information. That's why you got docked some points. Okay. So if I don't know what your business is, I can't help you create it and get more creative with it and help build you and direct you towards the appropriate means for the week. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's critical to understand, too, that what Chef Eric and I are talking about in tonight's lesson here in the live session, there really is no right or wrong when you choose your location, whether it be in a gas station, hospital, retail, strip mall, food court, department store, whatever the case may be, sporting venue. That's all up to you. That is your decision where you're going to put your facility. What we need to understand is your justification behind the decision for your location. So it's important that we include 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages as to this location. Please do not say, I put it on the street corner because of traffic. And
explain, rationalize, give some kind of feedback pertaining to, well, you know what, it's actually a 6-lane highway. There's plenty of parking around the corner, and go in depth about why that location is going to be beneficial. Okay.
Take a look online. You can go to the U.S. Census Bureau. You can go, like I said earlier, you can go to the Chamber of Commerce. You can find out traffic counts. You can find out all that good information. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell the justification to Chef Eric about the location of your restaurant. You want him to read your advantages and disadvantages and go, wow.
Think of me as the money man.
Yeah.
Okay. The man that's going to go ahead and, invest in your concept and be like, okay, you know what? This sounds like it could actually work. I can see some revenue getting pulled from this because you explain and you rationalize and you justified your reasoning behind why there's good. But without the good, without the bad, you can't have the good. So you got to have both. Right? So you can't just be like, well, this place is awesome. You know what? They even have a place right down the street that is going to go ahead and give us 50% off our lunches each and every week that we can go down there as staff, or after hours drinks. That ain't going to cut it. Okay?
Provide specific justification, just like you're on the Shark Tank. That you're going to have to be able to sell this to them. Think outside the box as well. I don't think we're looking for just a generic answer, street corner between X, Y, and Z. Come up with some unique places to put your restaurant concept. I've been reading recently about some restaurants that have opened up underwater, right? How do you come to that decision, and how do you justify that as advantages and disadvantages? So, think about
that place in the Maldives. I tell you, that's a beautiful place.
Yeah, that extra $20 million, you could build whatever you want, I guess. So make that happen. Does anybody have any questions? No?
Patricia, Tammy, Martel, Kimberly, Roberta, we're all good?
We're all good?
You guys got this turned in by Sunday, right?
Yeah. Smile, everybody.
Just be like, yes, chef.
And
yes, chef.
I know that's a hard lesson to learn, and guess what? That lesson comes knocking on your door once you get into industry regarding proaction versus reaction. Get your assignment done. Put pressure on Chef Eric. Be breathing down his neck. Starting this Friday, say, hey, we got our assignments in, man. What's going on? It's the way we roll in industry is we work fast, quick, and efficiently, and we work way ahead of the curve. We do not wait until the last minute to accomplish anything. Because that is a kiss of death. You never know what's going to go wrong at the last minute. I'm sure at this point in time in the course, some of you have waited till Tuesday night at 11:50 p.m. to start working on your assignment, and you find that something goes wrong and you don't quite get it in on time. So get it done early, right?
Tammy, don't worry. We've all been there, right? Chef Weeks and myself, we have been there.
You can do it, Tammy. You can do it.
Kitchen manager on the weekends. Some of the chefs here are sous chefs or are actual executive chefs for establishments, and they also do this, and they instruct, and they get out there, and they're in the business, right? The more on our plate, the happier we are, is kind of the name of the game. Okay, I have 5 different classes. When I was going to school, Tammy, I think I told you guys this before. I worked 2 40-hour jobs, planned my wedding, and got married in Florida. I live in Colorado. I also organized the food and beverage for my wedding. Not me, myself, cooking, but I was on the phone at least once a week with the actual chef that cooked all the food while I was working 40 hours at one job. And then at the other job, I went ahead and worked at least 30 while doing also all this online learning you guys are doing. So it's feasible. It's definitely feasible. And the thing is the more positive you stay about it, kitchen managing on the weekend, that should be easy breezy for you right now, right? No? Only 6?
I do 6 days a week. I work 6 days a week. I work 50 hours.
Yeah.
And then do school too. Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Probably have Monday off, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, no, I know. Oh, trust me, I know.
Yeah, it's 50 hours a week. It's not just 3 days.
Oh, I know. Just your weekends are your busiest time of the week. We get it. But that's why I have that. You know, if you guys need any kind of scheduling help, reach out to us. You know, we're here to help you. We're help see where we can squeeze in some things. You know, I mean, look at Patricia right now. She's cranking out, talking on the phone while sitting all up in our live session.
Oh, hell no. She's ordering pizza right now.
Multitasking. No, she's phoning a friend for that $1 million question.
I want an interview for a kitchen manager job.
I guess the bottom line is, and an old chef told me this once, he said, if you don't know what to do next week by now, you're running behind. And that's the way it's got to be to succeed. Everybody does something else. Just like Chef Eric was talking about, I worked the graveyard shift from midnight to 8 a.m. Then I went from culinary school from 9 to 6 p.m., went home, did my homework, crashed for a couple hours, got up and got going again. And I made it. Currently, I teach at a ground school. I work on the weekends at another restaurant. This job is 45 to 50 hours a week as it is. And so it's just effective planning and time management. It can be done. Absolutely. And like Chef Eric said, we're here to help you succeed. We'll give you whatever hints you need. You know, that's what we want. Ladies and gents, great live session. Thank you very much for participating. Don't forget, next Wednesday, November the 24th or 21st is our live session at 4
Wednesday. Repeat that to yourselves, guys. Wednesday.
At 4 p.m. is our
Central Standard Time.
Yes, Chef Eric and I are closing the office down in Scranton, and we are out of here for the weekend, man.
Mm-hmm. We'll be back Sunday.
But we will answer your calls if need be.
Text messages, preferably.
Yes. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for a great live session. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.